Sometimes late when things are real and people share the gift of gab between themselves. Some are quick to take the bait and catch the perfect prize that waits among the shells.
Hi guys, this is Alex, Comic Book 1962. I'm wearing my Fantastic Four shirt today, but we're not talking necessarily superheroes. I want to cover something that I talked to you about recently when I was doing one of the shows about a sale. I had an Archie book that was being sold, and I said I was going to follow that up with some discussions on some original art, because I think that some original art doesn't get the respect that it actually deserves. I think that sooner or later, this original artwork is going to start gaining in popularity. And again, remember, original art, there's only one of it. So the one you've got, the only one in existence. It isn't like a comic that's produced and reprinted over and over and over again. This is one-of-a-kind works, like the ones you see behind me, which are on this side is Superman and Starman from a showcase issue in DC, and then over here is Ultimate Fantastic Four, and over here is Ultimate Fantastic Four. Both of them from the second iteration of the Marvel Zombies, which is, I think, issue 32. You see another original art piece. Let's see if I can get this right there, right, and that is. Let me take a look. Yeah, these are. Hold on one second. I drew a blank there for a minute. Those are the Strangers. Actually, the artwork in the Strangers was excellent. That's one of the reasons why I pick up their original artwork. So now let's go on to the artwork I wanted to show you. We'll start with something that's not necessarily so classic, and this is what's called Little Archies. As you notice, these pages have these overlays because the actual title was one and the same all the time. So instead of having to draw them, they would just overlay those with those pieces. I believe those are, yeah, they are original art because I can see some of the whiteout or liquid paper. You guys may not know what liquid paper is, but years ago, before computers were used for word processors, you would type on a typewriter, and you would have a little bottle, and that little bottle would have a liquid in it that would be used to cover your mistakes and be able to type over. They would also use them in artwork, especially in comics, to eliminate areas that may have had some sort of color rub or maybe even the wrong. I think in this case, he had done the A smaller and decided to make it larger. So he used some white out there to increase the size of the A. The funny thing about liquid paper is, many of you may not know this, there was an old show in the 60s during the Beatles craze. The United States entertainment industry was seeking to do something that would not counteract, but follow along the hype that the Beatles were causing. So they created a group called the Monkees. And one of those guys had a mother who invented liquid paper. So if you've ever seen the Monkees, or you pick it up on one of these cable channels that shows old shows, or even YouTube, and you see who Mike is, Mike's mother invented liquid paper, so he was actually incredibly wealthy without the band. Now, here are three other ones. This is from Jughead Comics. You can see the artist listed on the bottom there. This is from Jughead Comics again. And if you notice, these are splash pages. If you try to get these for some of, this is Jughead number 34. And if you try to get some of these for the Marvel or even DC titles, you'll find them incredibly expensive. So grabbing them, especially the splash pages or the starting pages of the storyline, I think are a real steal right now. When I got these years ago. They were even a lot cheaper than they are now. At the time, I think I paid maybe $40, maybe $30, and maybe in some cases $20. Now, these were a little bit more expensive because they were the splash pages, but I think they're beautiful, and I think that they're going to be retaining their value. This is from 1992. This one is, let's see, I think it's got the date on the back. No, does not have the date, but it is Jughead 34. And this one is Archie 414. Now here's another advantage of collecting these issues. If you go back, I have a very good friend of mine who actually has complete EC stories from the 1950s, which are incredible because a page of EC by itself could run anywhere from $7 to $20 to $30,000. He has the entire story complete. Well, doing it with Archie is a little bit easier. So here's Betty and Veronica. And again, because you're able to get them for the price that I got these originally, I did buy these 10 years ago. I have the entire story. So not only do I have the one page, but I have a complete story out of the comic book. Again, you may not be so excited on this, but let me tell you that girl art is getting incredibly hot, especially Betty and Veronica. Now this was Betty and Me, and this was 1950. This was number 152, December 1985. Now I'm gonna jump into some other non-standard superhero original art, and don't tune out yet, because at the end of this, I'm gonna have some pretty cool stuff I'm gonna show you that has to do with horror comics in the 1980s, which is a sale that I just did. And basically, I've sold a series of what were called Pacific Comics, and you'll see some artwork from Richard Corbin. And if you don't know Richard Corbin, he was one of the major artists in Warren magazines. Warren made creepy, eerie. He also did a lot of heavy metal. He was known for his heavy metal work. And he did have a compendium called Comics International, issues 1 and 2, which featured only, I think it was only his artwork. And I'll tell you, it was beautiful. He used to use airbrush, and I'll show you some examples. Now, before we go there, Sad Sack. I want to show you this issue because this is the entire story that I have of Sad Sack. Many of you, I'm sure, have never heard of Sad Sack. Sad Sack was actually incredibly popular. He was the soldier kind of person. He was actually became popular, I believe, during World War II, and then continued through through the Vietnam and Korean War. And Sad Sack had the stories of, just what would happen in the military. So it was a very popular comic magazine with military. And as I said, this was the slop story, and this is another story called Good Thinking. And these are complete. So this is from Sad Sack 128, which is this issue here. And as you can see, it says loved by millions. It really was. It was so popular, it came in many different formats. And this is from 1962. So these are actually quite old pages. And I'm fortunate enough that I was able to pick up the comic book. You would be surprised, but something I learned while I was looking for some of these, and I went hunting for things like, and you may not know these by name, but Hot Stuff, Wendy the Witch, Casper. Casper is probably the most popular one that you all may know. These were all, and Richie Rich, these were all very popular Harvey titles. And the thing with Harvey was that Harvey's original art mostly got destroyed. So these are pretty rare. There is some that you can find, but a lot of Harvey artwork was destroyed. So in some cases, it's extremely, extremely rare. I haven't priced these in a while, and again, I went after all of these, the Archies, the Sad Sacks. I was never even able to get the Hot Stuff, Richie Rich, Casper, and Wendy, because the prices were astounding. I mean, back when I was looking at them, they were $500 a page. I don't know what they're at today. These I was able to get for the 20, 30, 40, $50. The entire stories I could pick up for like $125. And they're actually, and some of them even for $75. They're actually been with me now maybe 10 years. So I don't know what the price is. And one of the hard things about original art is that because it's one of a kind, you can't do comparisons. With comic books, if you have Ghost Rider #1, then you can go into eBay and look at what the last sale was for Ghost Rider. But if you have a page from Ghost Rider, you're the only one with it. So the last time it was sold was when you bought it. And there's no record of it because most of these sales happen like once every several years. So it's very hard to gauge the value, and it is treated as art form rather than comics. It's not as much of a commodity as comics are, and by commodity it's not a negative take on comics. It's just that comics are more easily comparable. So now I want to show you one that you guys may recognize. Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy is incredibly popular out of the Cartoon Network. One of the best cartoons they made in Cartoon Network. And this is from issue number 16, page 14. I would say, doesn't have the year on it, but I'm going to say this is likely to be 1994, 97, somewhere around there. It was when Ren and Stimpy was at its height. They released a comic book, and the #1 of Ren and Stimpy is actually quite valuable. So that one is one that you may recognize. Now, here is another page of Sad Sack. I think this belongs with the Thinking issue. And then we've got another complete story, which is a complete Sad Sack story. I'll show you this one. Army Ants. This is actually a very, very popular story from a popular comic version of Sad Sack. Now, Sad Sack has lost a lot of its popularity because over the years people have kind of forgotten it. But all it will take, there is a movie actually. If you want to go see how popular this was, they made a movie after it. Gomer Pyle, which was a television show from the 60s, was inspired through Sad Sack. And the artist for Sad Sack, although you may look at it and say it's very simple, was a renowned artist. His name, gosh, it's been so many years I've forgotten, but he was actually incredibly popular in his time. Let me see here. This was issue 234, September 1973, and I paid $110 for this entire story. Again, I mean, I love it because, first, I remember them from my childhood. Secondly, it's the whole story. I mean, try to get one of these from Marvel, you're going to be paying in the tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands. So, it's just very, very difficult. Most of the time, the hundreds of thousands would have to include the cover. I will say that. Even with Marvel, you don't get up there beyond maybe $5,000 a page normally. But they do go up. I had a friend, same friend that has the EC, had Fantastic Four 175, I believe, which was a Kirby cover, one of his later covers, with Galactus and the Fantastic Four around him. He sold that, and I think, I don't remember the price, but he did sell it in the tens of thousands. There's another one that he did sell that I remember vividly, which was an Avengers. It was another cover from, I think, of Avengers 87 or one of those. He sold that for $93,000. So you can actually make a lot of money with original art. You just have to wait for the right moment. One other item that's a little bit different, but I thought I'd show it, that I do try to collect, is original cartoon cells. These are really, really hard to find in some cases. Unfortunately, I apologize for the glare. I'm trying to see if I can get, that's probably the best I'm going to get. This is from Deputy Dog. And Deputy Dog was I want to say it was not, it was a Hanna-Barbera. It was a Hanna-Barbera, and it was actually incredibly popular for its time. I don't know if they have them still. I don't think they still run these, but Deputy Dog, guys, look him up. You can find his cartoons on YouTube. Okay, now let me show you the sale items. And let's talk a little bit about Richard Corbin, because Richard Corbin was probably one of my favorite artists from the early 70s. And this is one issue that he did for Pacific Comics on a series called Twisted Tales. His artwork was very reminiscent in some ways of underground comics. And if you don't know underground comics, again, I would suggest you go look them up. There's some interesting runs in underground comics. They were considered adult comic books. They weren't considered for kids, and therefore the collectability on them is extremely difficult, only because most of the people who collected the underground comics read them to death. So here is, see the name there? Richard Corbin. Just an amazing, amazing artist. He used to use, what do you call this? Airbrush. He used to do most of his art is airbrushed, and you can see that clearly when you see it. I mean, if you look closely, you can see the nipples on this girl. Right? He very, 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 very high detail was Corbin's artwork. Now, Twisted Tales, a little bit about that. Pacific Comics started a line of horror and a line of science fiction, which was incredibly popular and that I loved. I actually bought these off the stand, and I believe these are newsstand issues. I don't think that they were sold in direct comic book stores, and if they were sold identically to the newsstand. There was no differentiating them. Here's another. That one that you just saw there was number 1. This was number 1. This is number 8. Here's another. Number 10, I believe. Yep, number 10. See how cool the artwork was? Pacific doesn't get actually a lot of the praise they should get. And here's number 9. I had them out of order. But, you know, they're a little reminiscent of EC. And I think that's what the look they were going for. Now, this pack does not contain any of the of their science fiction comics, which I also have. But the individual who bought these 4 from me on eBay. And I think he's going to be pretty happy because I don't know if they're all going to be 9/8, but they're going to be pretty high up there. So again, guys, thank you for joining me. This is Alex at Comic Book 1962. If you like my content, please subscribe, hit the like button, and let me know if there's something you'd like me to cover. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you soon.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met